Hi everyone and good morning. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy and hectic schedules to join us today to discuss equity and inclusion. My name is Julia and I'm joined by Joseph and Elizabeth. During the Beyond the Horizon Youth Summit earlier this month, there were many topics talked about, ideas brought forward, and stories shared. In this section of equity and inclusion, students had the opportunity to touch on the topics of racism, exclusion, and inequality, which can be hard topics to open up and talk about. With that being said, every student was engaged and forthcoming, and we'd like to acknowledge the courage these students had to share their voice with us. Student leaders within the breakout rooms took notes. We then compiled all of their information into this presentation to share with you all. I would like to start off by formally introducing myself for those who may not know me. My name is Julia Major and I am a grade 11 student at J.H. Bruns Collegiate. I consider myself to be an advocate on behalf of all of the students who participated in the summit, and I sure can say that I'm proud to be a part of such an amazing student-led initiative within LRSD. I can't wait to see what's next on our journey beyond the horizon into a brighter future for tomorrow. The first topic I'd like to talk about is racism and prejudice. To begin, I'd like to make sure everyone is aware that during this presentation there are sensitive topics brought up that students spoke passionately about and shared experiences with. I hope you all can understand. Racism has been around for a long time and first appeared in the English language around the 17th century. I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, have heard or seen racism at some point in your lives. Over the past few years, awareness has been brought forward about putting an end to racism and seeking change. Many students discussed the Black Lives Matter movement and protests that had taken place over the past year following George Floyd's death. Although the BLM movement began in 2013, students have been paying more attention to the news recently and what has been happening in our world. Many students said they'd like to spend more time in their classes discussing the serious events going on, such as racial violence and discrimination. Not only would students like that to be more discussed, but they don't want to just focus on it during Black History Month. We feel it's important to include this into teachings and when given the opportunity to seek out change. It's truly devastating that racism still occurs even within our schools, which is why this next topic is very sensitive. Students shared that because of racism, they feel unsafe and not equal to everyone else. A variety of students said that racial slurs are still present within their schools and classrooms. A couple of stories brought up included the students being verbally racist, and this made students feel a range of emotions, including fear, anger, sadness, and anxiety. But when brought to a teacher, there was no action taken. Another example brought up was if a student went to a teacher, they would be labeled as a snitch or teacher's pet, which left students feeling helpless and excluded, making the problem get worse and worse. A large topic brought up several times was that some students experienced discrimination due to the color of their skin and were treated differently than the white students. This conversation occurred throughout all the grade levels from 5 to 12, which is eye-opening to see. Feeling marginalized and excluded in our schools extends beyond race and can include prejudice towards the LGBTQIAAP community. Students agreed and shared that outside of their home, schools are the primary vehicles for educating, socializing, and providing services to young people. School can be a difficult environment for students, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity, but has especially been often unwelcoming for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, transsexual, two-spirit, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, ally, and pansexual youth. Students feel there's a lack of policies and practices that affirm and support these students, as well as a failure to implement protections that do not exist. This means that these students continue to face bullying, exclusion, and discrimination in schools. Some students also shared that this negative environment makes it harder for students to come out because there isn't enough awareness and education on this topic within schools. As students of voice, we feel that this should be talked about starting at young ages to progressively eliminate the inequality. Here are some additional links and information on how to start these changes in your schools and classrooms, and you can access this PowerPoint after this presentation. I'm now going to pass the mic over to Joseph.
Thanks, Julia. Let me begin by saying how appreciative I am of all of you for taking part in sharing our voices and letting us share with you the information your wonderful students have shared with us. My name is Joshua Jibola, and I'm a grade 11 student, and I attend school at Nelson Mandela Collegiate. The topic I'll be talking to you about is helping change racism and stereotypes. For change to occur, we must be willing to step out of our comfort zones. It can't just be a token action or thought that you participate in when it's convenient. For schools to change, we want and need positive actions all year long. We need to change the fabric and culture of our schools from top down. Teachers and administrators will have to be able to deliver a positive and consistent message against racism and stereotypes. We need them to believe that changes will not just do it because it's part of the lesson plan or part of the directions that's curriculum. We want to be part of a permanent and meaningful message. During the summit, a fellow student shared that they want teachers to talk about inclusion regularly, not just because they are obligated to, but because they want to make change. It only takes one voice to start change. Teachers need to walk the extra mile to find out how much it affects students. We believe this conversation start at young ages, so it's normalized while the minds of students are being formed. Don't wait until the older grades when many negative thoughts, beliefs, and stereotypes have already been formed. Students have shared experiences of over racism that they face in school, and when approached by a student or teacher or administrator, they were dismissed and felt their concerns were not given the appropriate attention. As Julia has also mentioned earlier, students who face racism and stereotypes in school are looking to feel safe and want their concerns felt and heard. As society changes and we become more diverse, we have to ensure we are continually updating our educational message to encourage acceptance and respect, to make sure people of a different ethnicity and gender identification feel included. So we move forward. We do not see a difference, we just see other humans. It is a difficult journey to face the negatives to create a positive change, but it's needed and wanted by students of your schools. We want to go to school and learn in an open and safe environment, free of racism and stereotypes. As quoted by Nelson Mandela, education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. LRC has taken a few steps in the right direction by bringing in advocates and speakers, but schools need to do a better job of talking about acceptance on a regular basis. Students need a safe space to talk about racism, exclusion, and stereotypes. Students have expressed that they are too scared to speak up out of the fear that they'll be made fun of or bullied. We are looking for a safe system to express our feelings so we're not suffering in silence. The most important way we can think to create a world with equity and inclusion is to educate people. After all, that's why we go to school, to be educated. We think this all starts in school, particularly elementary school. Again, if students are educated from the very beginning about equity and inclusion, it will be ingrained with them as adults. Then they will also teach their kids to include people and be equitable. Change can have a ripple effect which can be used in our advantage to help change the future. The rest of the resources are articles you can go back to at any time during our presentation, after presentation, and I'll be handing the mic to Elizabeth.
Thank you, Joseph. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for listening and following along with our presentation thus far. My name is Elizabeth Ojo, and I'm a grade 10 student at Dakota Collegiate. Julia and Joseph have already shared with you many compelling stories and thoughts of students within LRC. I am here to talk about overall school inclusion to break down barriers. As you may know, COVID has brought up many positive and negative changes. COVID has opened me up to realize we need more positive changes within our schools. After hearing and reading what other students had to say about equity and inclusion, I realized we are all thinking the same thing. You might ask, Elizabeth, what are these things you're all thinking of or agree on? Well, we all agree that it's time to break down these barriers within schools that cause division among students, teachers, and staff. Now, I'm guessing you're all thinking, what are ways we can break down these barriers? Well, good news. That's what I'm here to share with you. A few ideas that were shared during the summit were to have more diverse staff to represent what the student body is made up of, Have regular keynote speakers talk to students about current topics such as the effects of racism, the effects of stereotyping, and what you can do to influence positive change and more. Having consistent positive messaging throughout the year, having clear policies and guidelines for teachers on how to deal with issues brought up to them by students, topics included in the curriculum such as current events as they happen so they are relevant and can help students understand and deal with current events such as the death of George Floyd, teaching how to react to events and new knowledge. For example, the use of pronouns. This creates a diverse and inclusive learning space for students, ensuring the educational materials are free of stereotypes and racist language. An example brought forward by a student was when reading a class book that included the N-word, the teacher had said it multiple times, leaving the students feeling uncomfortable. A big topic discussed was discrimination and racism towards Indigenous students. Many students shared their experiences with racism. A common example was when discussing Indigenous topics. During class lessons, students would roll their eyes and have the mentality that if it's not affecting me or not about me, why should I care? Which led to disrespectful and racist comments after those lessons. Racism is a very serious topic that many students do not understand. A lot of people choose to ignore the fact that it happens every day to others around them. We need to have more discussions about race and what actions we can take if we see it happening. We need to encourage others to be the positive voice to speak out against racism, stereotypes, and inequalities. We can all do better to make our schools more inclusive and safer for everyone. It will take a consistent effort. We have to have difficult conversations on a regular basis, not just during the symbolic day, week, or month, but a real effort that is consistent. If we start to change the conversation so it is normal, we can affect change by educating and sharing ideas and thoughts. We want an environment that is free from negative based on race, gender, and stereotypes, and focus on building each other up as humans. Let's break down these barriers together and lay down the stepping stones for the future. School can be and should be an inclusive environment where students can feel safe and be themselves. Well, thank you everyone this brings us to the end of our presentation. We hope that this provided you with some new points of view, ideas for the future, and insight on your students' perspectives. We thank you for joining us and your support to creating change within the L'Oreal School Division and hope to see these conversations continuously flowing. Please feel free to access our PowerPoint, to go through the links and visit the links with some resources and information provided. Thank you for hearing us. And as you all move into your breakout rooms, please allow these questions to guide your discussion. Thank you, everyone.